uh, Tina Eberly, who's going to talk about neurodivergent minds. Tina is also one of our teachers here, valuable member of our congregation.
Good morning. I'm Tina Eberly, and I'm sorry I can't be with you today. We are celebrating my niece's birthday, so I decided to send this video in. Brett asked if I would speak a little bit from a teacher's perspective about neurodivergent students and minds in the classroom. Um, for those of you who don't know, I am one of our RE teachers here at Buff. I've happily held that position since 2018, I believe. And I've worked with our youngest all the way to our oldest and everybody in between. Something I really enjoy doing. I'm also in education as a career. I taught for 11 years. I taught pre-K and young fives and worked with our kindergarten, first grade, and second grade classrooms and worked with behavior support program and built it. Um, at Countryside Academy for our young fives through fifth graders. So, about 7 years ago, I took a role in administration and have been doing that since. But I still work daily providing behavior supports for multiple students. And I, that being said, a lot of my day is spent with neurodivergent minds. So, um, in education, neurodivergent brains and minds, and um, just even the term has actually been around for quite some time. It depends on the conference or the session you'd be in. It could be called a little bit of, a couple different things, but really it's been something in education that we've been talking about. The earliest I can remember is about 2008. And, you know, it really is just talking about any mental and neurological function differing from what's considered typical or normal. Typically, neurodivergent minds need to have things modeled for them that someone who's neurotypical may just know what to do and know how to handle. And with the modeling and sometimes counseling and extra teaching, it allows someone with a neurodivergent brain to then begin to create those pathways, and what may be innate for me as a neurotypical person becomes a learned process for them. So there's the technical stuff. Um, from a teaching perspective, when I'm thinking about building a classroom and building a school family, even if it's at Buff, sometimes it's just my own kids and one other kid, sometimes it's 9 kids. I'm always and constantly trying to meet children where they are, trying to help give them the support and the guidance to build a bridge to where they need to go and help them recognize how they learn best and how they think. And sometimes that can be frustrating for neurodivergent students, especially if they're watching someone in their class who is neurotypical and they're just able to kind of snap it together and get it. I also witnessed this as a parent because 2 of my 3 children are neurodivergent, and my oldest Aurelia is and Althea are my neurodivergent children, where Coraline is pretty textbook neurotypical. So I watch even at home or in Buff when they're all together in the classroom. Aurelia, for instance, getting really frustrated and recognizing now that she's older that her younger sister is able to kind of just get something and understand it and process it. And it's taking her prompting, it's taking her that extra step of me modeling it or teaching it. So, one of the things that I talk to a lot of our new educators that come through at Countryside is flexibility. Not only to create flexibility in your classroom so that everyone has an opportunity to find success and find what works for them, but teaching the children to be flexible. Um, and that can be really, really challenging for those who are neurodivergent because they're already not processing something as a neurotypical person would. They may not understand it. They may not even recognize that, a certain process or a certain cue exists. And so rather than sitting down, breaking it apart every time, recognizing it, pulling it into, the forefront, just modeling it is oftentimes a great way to kind of on the sly teach it. Um, there's a young teacher that I was working with a few years ago, and it was, she had a lot of children actually in her class. Of 24 kids in her class, I think seven were had diagnosed, um, have been diagnosed with um, ASD, ODD, ADHD, sensory processing disorder, all these different things, which automatically kind of gave you that neurodivergent title and label as well. And she was brand new, and she saw every acronym come across and got really scared. And I said, "Oh, this is amazing. You know this up front now. There will be more, trust me." And there were. That, children that received a diagnosis throughout the year or needed additional support. I said, "You're knowing this up front. So if you know that, a third of your classroom essentially is neurodivergent, then you know that by just beginning every day and, every chance you get, modeling it, talking your way through what you're doing, not only helps those who are neurodivergent create these new pathways in their brain so that they can, you know, learn this process, it also helps all your neurotypical students because they're not only seeing the process in which they're not only seeing the modeling, they may see it done in a different way. So it teaches them to be flexible. Um, One of the other things that I try to keep in the forefront when thinking about how to reach each student and how to make neurodivergent less of a stigma and less of a scary thing that, educators need to be worried about, because in education right now, especially, it's just always one more thing. So, you know, when I'm thinking about how do we look at neurodivergent minds without that sense of like, oh my gosh, I got to do one more thing. I got to model everything. I got to teach another thing that, a lot of my children will just know. I just think about the things I don't know yet. There are plenty of things I don't know. I am neurotypical. I do innately understand cues and know just kind of what to do in certain situations. And I did as a child and I did as a young adult. But there are still things I don't know. And I think about the great teachers I've had who have been flexible with me and who have taught me and found the ways that I am successful. In education, we're not just teaching to neurotypical and neurodivergent brains. We are teaching to students who are audio learners and students who are tactile learners and students who will need you to sit with them. Students who need to stand in order to be successful. Students who need to have a few extra bites of food just so that they can focus on anything but being hungry. And so for me, even though, yes, it adds one more thing, it really just hand in hand goes with every part of what it means to be a good educator. Meeting students where they are, helping create the bridge that they can then walk over themselves to get to the next platform. When I think about the neurodivergent mind and brain as a parent, it actually sometimes is more scary. um, Even though I have the information I have, I do know that in education, and this can vary teacher to teacher, classroom to classroom, administrator to administrator, district to district, being neurodivergent does not always mean that you are going to get what you need. It sometimes means that you're going to be put kind of the back to the back. And like I said, I work in behavior supports. So there are teachers who will send me students who are neurodivergent and they just need things tweaked a little bit. And the teacher sees them as a behavior problem instead. And so I know that that can easily happen. And as an educator, I make it a very conscious effort in my day to day to make sure that I am one of the people who are constantly helping those educators understand the difference between a behavior issue and an issue of processing. Um, and so, thankfully, I have also found educators in my children's education that have also thought this way. But I am constantly, as a parent, preparing for the day that they don't have an educator who is ready for that. I have put 504 plans in place. I have, stay in constant communication with the teachers and their pediatrician and their counselors, just so that we can always have it notified, just so that we can always have it in our thoughts, reminding ourselves that some of the issues that may occur have nothing to do with behavior, simply processing. So, like I said, thankfully, in my experience, my children have not had an educator who has needed help in this area. But as a parent, I feel it's important for a parent of a child who's neurodivergent to just always be prepared. And so sometimes as a parent, you got to teach a teacher. So from the teaching standpoint, if you are one of those parents, I commend you. It is a lot. And for anyone who is ever wondering what it is like in a classroom with neurodivergent students, come on through one of our Buff Sundays and you'll see. I've seen every teacher in there doing a bang up job, meeting every student where they are, recognizing and acknowledging everyone for the amazing brains and hearts that our kids at Buff have. So, yeah. Well, I could probably go on for a long time, but I will stop. So I really hope you all have a really great rest of service, and we will see you soon.